hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to?
Don't let anybody make you think that God chose America as his divine messianic force to be a sort of policeman of the whole world. God has a way of standing before the nations with judgment, and it seems that I can hear God saying to America, you are too arrogant. If you don't change your ways, I will rise up and break the backbone of your power, and I'll place it in the hands of a nation that doesn't even know my name. Be still and know that I'm God.
Welcome again to Street Talk. My name is Ahmad Sakaraki, and on Street Talk we do the political, social, and economics here in Michigan, the U.S., and abroad. Now, joining me tonight,
Dennis Burnside,
Charles Thomas,
Paget Maynard.
All right, man. We got a lot to cover tonight, but
happy Juneteenth, brother.
Happy Juneteenth.
It was Juneteenth, and we finally got it passed. You know, where now it's officially Biden signed one day, he signed last week. You know, become a official day. But for me, it kind of makes me look at 100 some years later, 150 some years, or 160 some years later, we get Juneteenth passed. You know, we get it passed, and the president signs, and all that. And to me, a lot of people celebrating know not a thing about Juneteenth. You know, they're just out celebrating. So I'm gonna let my friend Paget, my friend Chuck here, and my friend Dennis break it all down.
Well, if you look at the history of Juneteenth, I think we need to start with how Juneteenth came to be.
Okay.
Okay. You had Abraham Lincoln pass the Emancipation Proclamation January 1st, 1863.
Okay.
That night, all over Black America, including the South, you had what people called Freedom Eve parties, where they were looking for the acknowledgement at the state level that enslaved Africans were no longer enslaved. And you even had Black Union troops going from place to place, acknowledging and letting people know that they were now free. But
Okay.
the problem with that proclamation, January 1st, 1863, was the height of the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
And you can make arguments that the Union was losing at that moment.
Yeah.
And you can also say that with the addition of African American troops into the Union Army after the proclamation, the Emancipation Proclamation, increased numbers and gave them strategic advantages in certain battles, that but for the Emancipation Proclamation and the joining into the Union Army of African American troops, the Federals would have lost.
Yeah.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So you have that in 1863. From 1863 through 1865, June 19th, 1865, you had different communities that were formerly controlled by the Confederate Army finding out that they were now free and had been free since January 1st, 1863. The holiday that we commemorate now was because the last large group of African Americans, enslaved African Americans, about 250,000 in Texas, found out that they were indeed free on June 19th, 1865. And that's when it became Juneteenth. And that was a local celebration for generations that expanded throughout the South slowly and gradually became a national holiday. And let us not forget that the 13th Amendment, codifying the freedom of African Americans into the Constitution, didn't pass until December 1865. Now, what happened between 1865 and 1877? Where you had Reconstruction, and then the loss of Reconstruction. The rejuvenation of the KKK as a way to enforce the new Jim Crow laws. And from 1877, you still had some people enslaved, never had been free. And then, of course, you had neo-slavery, the Jim Crow laws, which limited what African American men and women could do for a living and how much they could make. And you could argue to this day, with the prison industrial complex and the school to prison pipeline, that we still have neo-slavery in the United States. So I think what Sheila Jackson Lee did last year in June 2021, getting the Juneteenth legislation passed with the surprising help of John Cornyn, a Republican, who is almost to the right of Twitler, passed this into law. And I still don't understand what made these right-wing Republicans say, yeah, it's a good idea to have Juneteenth as a federal holiday. So to address your question, the reason why it took so long is because everything takes so long when it comes to our rights and our freedoms and our ability to live the American dream. That's why.
Okay, I'll go along with that.
I'm glad I convinced you.
Chuck.
Yeah, well, I think wasn't the Statue of Liberty given to America to commemorate the liberation?
It was given to the United States as a way to celebrate the 4th of July. 4th of July. It was given to the United States by the French.
Okay.
And it had unabashedly black woman as the model, and the United States said, "No, we can't have this."
And they still got the shackles at the foot of the
steps. The artist redid it. He made the woman in the European image, but he left that chain around her ankle as a indication of what his initial intention was. Which, if the United States is the bastion of freedom and liberty, it ought to be for everybody. So. I think that was a brave sentiment, and the idea that most people don't know what the Statue of Liberty stands for is another story. But to Ahmad's earlier point, if we're going to talk about Juneteenth and celebrate it as a holiday and commemorate it, we should know why it became a holiday, how long it took, why it took so long to become a holiday, and the circumstances that made it necessary in the first place.
Patrick.
All right, then Dennis give a pretty good account of it. I don't know that I have anything else I could add, except that I will say, well, when it comes to government here, nothing seems to get done quickly unless it's something that's going to benefit them.
Well, you know, I was watching TV, I think yesterday evening, after I got through with my garden and with my flowers. I was watching TV, and you had some kickback from some people saying that because some stores like Walmart and some other stores, some other the big stores were selling, stuff with Juneteenth and all that on, and they were saying they shouldn't do it, but why shouldn't they? Every other holiday, even King holiday, they be selling stuff for that holiday. So, to me, might as well, the stores might as well sell.
Well, stores are commercialized rat poison if you let them. If there's a market for a rat poison T-shirt, they'll make them.
Yeah.
I think we have a recent example in the King holiday.
Mm-hmm.
That was that became a federal holiday in 1984. His memory serves.
Yeah, 84.
Now, for 25, 30 years, you really didn't see any companies giving their employees a day off. You didn't see large-scale celebrations of the King holiday. It was on the calendar. I always took it as a personal day or a vacation day, but it wasn't given to me as a holiday. President's Day was, other obscure holidays are often given corporately as a day off, but you didn't see the same thing happen with Martin Luther King's birthday until recently, until recent times. And I think you're going to see the same thing with Juneteenth. Let's be honest. Some of our family out there, the African American family, is a little timid and scared when it comes to asserting themselves. And they don't want to rattle any cages by loudly proclaiming, "Hey, I'm taking this day off. This is my holiday." But in time, that's going to come as it's more accepted by the culture at large, and I think then you will start seeing more and more celebration and attention paid to the holiday as opposed to what we're seeing right now. And this is only first year. It was passed in 21. It's 22 now.
Well, for me, if you're going to honor or whatever you want to do for any day, it would be Juneteenth. I look at all the rest of the days, and maybe Labor Day, but we could go through. We could go through a lot of things that blacks didn't get or didn't do, and all that.
Well, Memorial Day was started by African Americans. A lot of people don't know that. African Americans were the first ones to say we need to acknowledge our war dead after the Civil War. And that became a local tradition that expanded into a holiday over time. So I think we shouldn't expect.
We didn't get any recognition from them, so.
Well, even so, even though they co-opted it, and Memorial Day is no longer thought of as something as being initiated by African Americans, it's still a national holiday. But it took time to become that, to become celebrated that way. I don't think Juneteenth is going to be any different.
But I don't think our community is going to derive from anything from this, as long as they keep teaching white supremacy in the black churches. To me, we got to deal with the psychological effect from slavery. We think we're not normal as psychologically.
The
damage.
I was watching something the other night, and it's been on. This is the second time it's been on. It was on about 4 or 5 months ago. What's the man name to do these things on Tuesday night? What's his name? The black brother who a few years ago had this thing where he was at his own house and
the police stopped and had the beer out in the front yard with Obama.
What was his name?
Are you talking about Skip the Truth Bailey? Skip the Truth. Skip. He's a law professor. A professor at I believe Princeton.
Well,
I know you're talking about.
Anyway, he was redoing this thing he done about 4 or 5 months ago, and 1862, somewhere along in there, Fisk University in Nashville, they had this minister. And Patches, don't get angry, Patches. Don't get angry.
I won't. You hear me say my piece on those things already.
But in this church, man. Now this is between 1862 and somewhere along in there. They was doing this thing, and I'd be looking for some different things, when they be talking, and I'd be looking for but in a black church, and right now, here's a picture of Jesus, long hair, white, and everything, in this black church. This is 1860. I'm thinking 63 or 64, somewhere like that. Anyway, I can see where where people, black people, where they come along and feel that white is great, you know, and they are just something, you know. And they had a thing where these black kids was talking about Santa Claus, you know, and they showed a white Santa Claus and they showed a black Santa Claus, and the black kid was saying, "Oh, that ain't real Santa Claus. That's real Santa."
The white one.
Yeah.
Is, yeah.
Well, that's part of the psychological conditioning, and you can see it at the highest level. You were just talking about Professor Skip Gates, who has always he's referred to by the black intellectual community as Skip the Truth Gates, because he's always looking for a way to come up with a way to endorse the narrative of Western civilization being at the apex of human development. I'll take you one further. Neil deGrasse Tyson, very popular astronomical expert. I remember taking my daughter to see him when she was at University of Michigan, and I generally enjoyed the lecture that he gave. And for the most part, I find the man entertaining. But every now and then he'll say something that's so objectionable, and it goes back to the truth. You're talking about the white image in Church of Jesus and how common that is and the psychological damage that it can do. Well, how about the white image of the development of science? I just heard this professor proclaim, Neil deGrasse Tyson, so everybody's specific about who I'm talking about, proclaim that what Christopher Columbus did was unsurpassed in human history. A great accomplishment, one that we should all bow down from. Okay, let's forget for a moment that if you know anything about human history and DNA, you know that all human beings have the same mitochondrial DNA from a black woman in Africa. That means that all those hundreds of thousands, let me rephrase that, all those hundreds of millions of people who were in South, Central, and North America at the time Columbus arrived in the Caribbean, got there by foot and boat. We know that now from archaeological evidence. They came there as seafaring navigators, okay? And this man acts as if we aren't aware of the fact that Columbus had journals. And in his journals, he talked about his navigators from West Africa, what we would now call Nigeria and Ghana, who helped him find the New World because they'd been there before. And when you got there, you saw evidence such as royalty wearing animal furs that only come from Central Africa. You saw evidence of bodies, mummified bodies, being buried with tobacco and cocaine. This is thousands of years old that could only have come from Central or South America. And here's Neil deGrasse Tyson, who's supposed to be at the apex of intellectual development when it comes to astronomy. And he's so busy trying to happy coon that he wants to expect us to be that ignorant where we think that what Christopher Columbus did by going to the Caribbean and mass murdering the indigenous people, the Hopi Indians. We're supposed to make believe that what he did was somehow glorious and unprecedented and something that human history would not have advanced beyond. He does the same thing with Copernicus and some of these other European figures at the start of what they call their Renaissance, where the knowledge that they're waxing nostalgic about, you know, the fact that the Earth is round and not flat, that mathematical measurements like pi and other formulas can help them accurately measure the geometry of the planet. They want us to believe that that wasn't already being used thousands of years ago in Africa. And here's this man again, I don't know where he teaches, I believe Harvard, Princeton, something like that, renowned all over the world as this intellectual, lying to us. Because, I'm sorry, There's no way he doesn't know what I just said.
Yeah.
I know he has access to the same books that I have. And I'm no PhD in astronomy, but I know enough to know that that all the pyramids of Giza are aligned to fit the astronomical reflection as above, so below.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That if you take the circumference and the height, you get the measurement of the planet, and that they're all built with pi and the Pythagoras theorem.
Yeah.
Thousands of years before Pythagoras was born. So stop with this Western intellectual superiority when all they did is rewrite what we had already done, and then they get guys like Skip Gates
Yeah.
and Neil deGrasse Tyson to come along and endorse their lies.
Yeah.
We got to stop that. And it's the same thing with this idea that when the first bill that came along around 1975 and said we need to celebrate Juneteenth, the idea, what do you need to celebrate for? You're free.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, it's America, the
Yeah.
greatest country in the history of the world. That's not true,
Yeah.
and we were not. So the whole idea, man, is to be a truth teller. I forget who I'm quoting here, but I'm paraphrasing. There's a great man that said that to be a truth teller in today's world is a dangerous thing to be.
Right.
Yeah.
And I refuse to play those games, or I'm going to pretend like my ancestors didn't accomplish what they accomplished.
Right.
Yeah.
That the Holy Trinity came out of some kind of pope
Yeah.
in Turkey in 325 AD. I'm not going to do that. Constantine stole what he had been told from Africans around the beginning of the new millennium, you know, the 0 year,
Yeah.
and they created the Catholic Church, stealing what can easily be found and traced if you ever deign to read one of the books like Coming Forth by Day and by Night. You see where a lot of your Bible tracks come
Yeah.
from.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
But I'm going on and on, just saying that if you don't study history and you don't know who you are, you can be told it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they went around the world telling this very same lie.
Oh yeah.
And that's why they think they bought the lie. They think that they are a superior race.
Yeah.
Got high on their own
From the
supply.
lie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were saying, Patty?
You guys got me laughing back here, man. But you know what? A lie is a lie regardless of who tells it.
Yeah.
And it's time enough we understand that truth will prevail regardless of who don't want to hear it. And we got to understand this country is not the origin of civilization.
No.
We sometimes think that everything focused here in America. That's not true. You have to go back to the origin. And Dennis, thanks for letting it out as you did. It is really and truly unfair. And I wasn't getting mad at you because too many things in the churches are not being truthful. A lot. You talk about the white Jesus, the white Santa Claus, and these kind of things. Number one, there is no Santa Claus.
Right.
This is a figmentation.
Right.
Okay? So, like one day, it was Christmas time, I was in Myers or someplace, and this woman, me and my kids, something she said about Santa Claus. They say, I'm their Santa Claus. They get me every day of the year, not once a year, you know? And we have got to tell people, black is beautiful, okay? People got to know. Black people, you need to know. Black is beautiful, number one. And number two, Dennis, all who are speaking now and wherever they come from, whatever color they have, where did you say they come from? Back to who?
Back
An
to
African?
Yeah.
Black African.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the thing that I find so confounding is if you look at the transatlantic slave trade, which started in 1492, and the very first enslaved Africans didn't arrive in North America until early in the 17th century, around 1619, okay?
Yep.
And from 1619 till today, the vast overriding majority of African Americans in the United States are Christians.
Yeah.
They didn't come here Christian,
No.
but they developed that way over centuries, over decades and centuries, are being taught that this is what the truth is. Your life story can be found within the pages of this book called the Holy Bible. And
King James
God
version.
bless him. The King James, of course. But any version of the Bible you wanna come and put across me, I can show you where it's a derivative of the meta-netter, stolen from the writings that were found in the pyramid texts, the coffin texts, and the pyramids of Giza. But that's besides the point. It's all derivative of African spirituality. But what's amazing to me is, if you look at the history of the first international trade, slave trade system, which came out of the Middle East, there was no such thing as Islam until the 7th century AD. Around 645 AD, Islam was codified into existence, and you had this this understanding with the Quran and with these religious traditions that this was the truth. And within 110 years, most of North Africa went from practicing spiritual systems to becoming Islamic. So I went through all that to say that if you call yourself a Christian, or you call yourself a Muslim, or you call yourself Buddhist, Hindu, whatever, fine. But just know, within the kernel of truth of those religions lies at its foundation the teachings of African spirituality, and all of the stories and parables and examples that we quote so readily in these modern holy books can be found all the way back in the spiritual system of Africa. So when I run across someone who tells me they're Muslim, or they tell me they're Christian, I don't look down on them. I don't tell them that they're practicing the wrong thing. I know what they're searching for is the truth that's within them, that was passed on to them through their DNA thousands of years ago by the ancestors. All I ask is when they start proselytizing to me and telling me what I need to do, first learn what I know. And then tell me what I ought to be, because I know what you know. I was raised in that church.
And the thing that I like to iterate too, like Muslim means a righteous person. And if you look at what we've been through as a people, melanated people, under white Christianity, and you still want to be you still want to follow the white image?
Well, in defense with those brown Arabs, they brutalized and raped. They pillaged and stole.
Married the
they
babies.
Copied. They did everything with the exception of taking us across an ocean that the Europeans did. They just did it a few centuries earlier.
And they had harems too for black women.
So, religion as a whole, if we're going to go down that track, to me, when somebody, it creates a hierarchy, and they tell you that you're here and God's up here and I'm standing here to help you get there, I ain't got any use for it.
And
because what do you know?
Yeah, you got to go through me.
Yeah, you got to go through me. I'm God's. Well, the Pope, who I often call the pimp, literally was created as the vicar, the mouthpiece of God. You want to hear from God, you got to talk to me. I'll tell you what God's thinking. Or you want favors from God? Come spit in my ear, tell me what you want, and bring some gold coin with you.
Kiss my ring.
And I'll help God get that to you. Now, most of the world accepts that as the truth. Because most of the world is either Muslim or Christian. Well, Catholicism is just the first version of Christianity. They all believe in it, with the exception of some don't abide by the Pope. Since the Reformation in the Middle Ages. But it's all designed to control you. It's not designed to enlighten you.
Time's up, and my name is Ahmad Shakaraki, and we catch you right down the next block for more Street Talk.
Don't let anybody make you think that God chose America as his divine messianic force to be a sort of policeman of the whole world. God has a way of standing before the nations with judgment, and it seems that I can hear God saying to America, you are too arrogant. If you don't change your ways, I will rise up and break the backbone of power. And I'll place it in the hands of a nation that doesn't even know my name. Be still and know that I'm God.